Are you a content creator hoping for a more professional looking channel? Welcome to my new series, Design Academy. We will cover design and branding from the very basics to more in-depth topics. Today, let's focus on an introduction to creating your brand. Hey guys, I'm MoCraft20. You may know me from Twitch. Before we hop into the meat of this video, I wanted to just give you a little bit of background as to why I am doing this series. I am a graphic designer by trade. I have been in the industry for well over 15 years, doing everything from print media to web design to currently working in the email industry. I have covered branding and design from many different angles, so I want to share that knowledge so that you guys can create the best channels that you can possibly have, whether or not you can afford to have a professional doing all of the artwork.
Branding may seem a bit overwhelming, so let's break it down into smaller pieces. Let's start with 2 questions. Question number 1, what is a brand? A brand is a combination of business and marketing concepts that help people identify a specific company or individual. A lot of people think that a logo or a slogan is a quote-unquote brand, but it's actually just part of the whole brand. A brand includes logos, colors, tone of voice, and more, but we'll cover that in a bit. Question number 2, why is it important to have a brand for your channel? You only have one chance to make a first impression. Before even hearing your voice or watching your content, that initial impression can pull the viewer in. If your branding doesn't match your content, viewers may start with skewed expectations. When you're deciding on the brand for your channel, make sure you keep it personal. There's no right or wrong here. What makes sense for you? For example, when I decided on my branding, I looked at who I am on and off camera. I love kitty cats and the color pink, so already I have 2 things to focus on. I also know that I like very modern aesthetics. So here's the important part. My branding won't work for everyone. Heck, it probably only works for a small percentage of people. That's why you need to make sure your brand reflects who you are. Take a moment and list out a couple things that really personify you and your channel. If it helps, press pause, and I'll be here when you get back. So how does someone get brand assets? There are 2 ways to approach this: commission or do it yourself. Not everyone is a graphic designer, so if you don't feel comfortable creating your own logo or graphics, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of artists open for commissions on sites like Fiverr and Etsy. I even found my emote artist on Twitter. When commissioning any type of artwork, make sure you are open and honest with your artist. Give as many details at the beginning of the project as possible, including reference photos or examples, to give them a solid footing at the start. Tell them all of your ideas, things that you like, things that you don't like, and what you are truly looking for in the end result. If something comes back that isn't quite what you expected, let them know. A designer needs that feedback in order to deliver the final result that you want and need. If you want to create these things for yourself, you will need some type of graphic software like Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, or GIMP. Some of these softwares are licensed, others are free. I personally work with the Adobe Creative Suite of products. I will warn that the learning curve for some software like Photoshop is really high, so you're going to need some practice and probably a lot of YouTube tutorials if you don't already know how to use these softwares. Whichever route you take, some things to consider for your brand include a logo, color palette, font choices, mascots and/or emotes, and decorative elements like nameplates and icons. The key is to create a defined set of colors, fonts, and visuals that will be repeated for all of the graphics that you make. This consistency will start to develop what your brand is to you and your audience. The end goal is to make all of your content look and feel the same, whether it is in your streaming overlays, on social media, or on other websites and services. Let's take a little bit of time to do a brief overview of all the different components. I will be doing full videos on each one of these separately to really dive into the deep details, but today I want to at least get a general overview to sort of get your feet wet. Let's start out talking about color. When I'm starting a new designer branding, I focus on color first. I can talk for hours about color theory, but this probably isn't the place or the time. So let's start super simple. What's your favorite color? Make that your starting point. If you aren't familiar with color theory or color palettes, there are lots of websites out there that have pre-made palettes. I personally love Coolers. It has pre-made, it lets you build your own, and it even lets you save palettes. So I will include a link below. Pro tip: even if you love every color, be sure to limit your color palette. Too much color can be overwhelming, so some of the strongest color palettes are a single color plus black and white. My personal color palette includes 5 colors, but I broke them into 2 groups, main and secondary. The main colors, hot pink, yellow, and purple, are used in everything I create. The secondary colors, orange and plum, are just little hints that I add in to draw attention when needed. The next thing I want to talk about are fonts. Typography says a lot about you and your brand. Are you classic and sophisticated? Modern? Spunky? Pick a font that reflects your personality and your channel, but always make sure it is easy to read. Some fonts look really neat, but it's hard to tell what they actually say, especially if it gets really small or really large. If someone cannot read and understand what you're trying to say, the message you're trying to convey is lost. So always make sure that readability is number 1 on your list. Next, let's talk about logos. A logo is the defining mark of your brand, but it doesn't need to be complicated. A logo can be anything from a single letter to a word to a full illustration. The key is to be used consistently. Changing the logo repeatedly will lessen the recognizability of it. So you can have different variations of the same logo, perhaps in different colors so that it looks nice on various backgrounds, but try to keep the core components the same and then always use the same graphic files over and over again so you make sure it's always identical. This will help to create familiarity, which helps to create brand recognition, which helps to create loyalty. Just think about Coca-Cola. Everybody knows when they see that white text on that red background, they don't even have to read it, they know what brand it is. That is because it is consistent across everything they do, and it has been the same for years. The last kind of component category is graphic elements, and this is sort of our catch-all bin. This includes emotes, icons, and then those special little visual details that you're going to add throughout all of your things. These shapes, icons, and artwork pieces are the little details that add polish and finish to everything you create. Like everything else, though, consistency is key.
I know that was a lot, but if you take the time to plan everything out that we talked about, you're going to start creating a consistent brand image that your viewers are going to feel a familiarity with and start creating that loyalty to your brand. So what we're going to do is next time, we're going to dive into a deeper look at graphic software and what each one kind of does. And then from there, we're going to really start focusing in on each of these individual topics so that you can build your brand to be the best brand that you can build.